The following video contains scenes that may be considered disturbing or triggering for some viewers. Discretion is advised when watching this video.
Lyssa Tindal looked out at the grey sky over dull green hills, her legs crossed as she sat on a tree stump. She had the nagging feeling she was forgetting something, but it didn't seem that important right now. It was cool, but not so cold that she was uncomfortable in her thin jacket and smartly pressed trousers. She wondered for a moment why she didn't have pockets, and then dismissed the thought as irrelevant. "Looks like rain later," she said idly.
Does it?
A voice was speaking from behind her, and she turned. A man was standing behind her, with long blonde hair, a smiling face, and a knee-length navy blue coat. "Yes," she said, without thinking. She looked back out. "Always does."
Always?
His voice sounded curious, but also cautious, as though he were being careful with his words.
You've been here a long time then?
She paused, frowning. "I think so? Hard to say."
Why?
He asked.
"Because..."
She paused.
"You know, I really don't know."
There was silence for a moment, before she turned to look at him, frowning at his face. There was a nagging sensation in the back of her mind. Hadn't she seen him before somewhere? "Who are you?" she asked. His eyes were heavy, and he gave her a small, empty smile.
Are you sure you want to know the answer to that question?
"I wouldn't have asked if I didn't." He nodded, his lips pursing slightly.
There are consequences.
To what? The answer? That much seemed obvious to Lyssa, and she felt a brief pang of annoyance.
The question.
That gave her pause. "What sort of consequences?" He smiled again, yet this smile was somehow even emptier than the first.
There are always consequences to asking questions. Even if it's just having the answers.
Lyssa scowled. "That sounds like cod philosophical tripe." His smile widened into a laugh, though it was short and harsh.
Does it? I thought it sounded rather profound. But then, perhaps it's a matter of perspective.
His smile faded, and there was another moment of silence between them. It stretched out for a long moment, and Lyssa looked back out at the clouds. After a moment, she let out a soft sigh. "Looks like rain later."
So you said?
She turned. The man was there, and for a moment she felt a flash of confusion. Had he been wearing a white waistcoat a moment ago? Had he even been there a moment ago? Surely he had. She blinked at him.
Is everything all right?
He asked her. She blinked again. Her brow furrowed. She ran a hand through her blonde hair before swallowing, trying to string together a sentence. "Who are you?" she asked again. Was it again? He was smiling as though at a fond memory. Really?
Do you really want to know?
I did. Before.
Before?
He definitely sounded surprised.
You remember before?
She paused, looking away from him for a moment. She looked back out at the sky, frowning at it. The clouds loomed on the horizon, close enough to feel the chill of rain in the air, but far enough that it would be a while before they got here. It looks like rain later, she said softly, almost to herself.
Yes.
She turned at the sound of a man's voice. Blonde hair, a tired smile, a duffel coat over a cream waistcoat, a white shirt and a red knitted tie, and a spoon poking from the side pocket. He was holding a scarf in his hands, almost like a fidget toy.
It usually does.
You? Lyssa shook her head, feeling a wave of anger and confusion. Who are you? He sighed.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to aggravate you.
I'm not aggravated. There was a ringing in the back of Lyssa's head. I mean, I am aggravated, but I'm not... What was I saying? She looked away for a moment, feeling confused again, before looking back at him. He was messing with the cuff of a burgundy shirt that was sticking out from the cuff of his short black suit jacket. He looked up at her, smiling again.
You had a question?
He said. I wanted to know who you are. She swallowed. Didn't I?
You did.
His smile faded.
We've met before.
Have we?
I'm the doctor.
There was something sad in his expression, like he felt guilty even saying that. She blinked. Doctor? The word, said in that way, like a title that held more significance than merely a name, seemed to ping in the back of her mind. I remember you. I think, she said after a moment.
You do?
He sounded surprised. Yes. She struggled to think. A figure seemed to pop into view in the back of her mind, shorter than this man with darker hair. I remember you wore a frock coat. Blue, I think. No, green.
Both, actually.
He smiled wistfully.
You see, there was a tailor on Savile Row who made them both for me. Wonderful chap, and he...
The man trailed off.
Sorry.
You had a leather jacket on too.
3, actually. But they were all very similar.
Lyssa narrowed her eyes. Didn't you have a beard?
No, only for a moment.
And... No, wait, you had a suit on.
I've worn quite a few.
You were a woman, weren't you? Lyssa asked.
A fair few times since then.
Lyssa blinked. I don't understand any of this. You haven't always looked like this. The man, the doctor, smiled at her again. Not wistful now, but gentle, sympathetic. Like he actually was a doctor and he had bad news, but he wanted to deliver it in a way that didn't hurt.
Do you remember your name?
He asked her. She nodded. Lyssa Tindal. She blinked. Captain Lyssa Tindal.
Ah!
He said, clapping his hands together, before brushing a little dirt from the sleeve of his coat's cuff.
Yes, I thought as much.
Thought what? Lyssa asked. The doctor smiled again.
Do you remember how you came to be on this planet?
She shook her head. How had she come to be here? She turned to look at the clouds looming off in the distance. It looked like rain later.
You were a captain.
His voice said from behind her.
A captain of the starship called the Titan Concordia. Big, pompous battlecruiser type. Lots of eager young lads and lasses in space jackets and go-go boots.
He laughed again.
Always loved going on a big, pompous battlecruisers, especially in that body, but this was a different time.
Something grew wistful in his voice. Lyssa wasn't sure when he had taken the coat off. He was standing now only in a plain white shirt, unbuttoned at the top, and there was a cut above his brow. His tie was hanging about his neck.
The Time War.
Those 3 words struck a chord with Lyssa, though she wasn't sure why, and she frowned. "What happened?" she asked him. He smiled softly.
It was supposed to be me. Nothing changes even after all this time. It's always supposed to be me, but I always seem to miss the mark.
"What happened?" she asked again. He pulled slightly at his grey tie, adjusted the black overcoat he wore, and sighed.
There was a bomb.
"A bomb?"
A time bomb on your ship.
He sniffed.
I wanted to disarm it. You stopped me and you did it yourself.
"But if I disarmed it?"
The effects were contained to about the size of a room. A single person was caught in the blast, caught in a personal time loop.
He put his hands in his duffel coat pockets and gave her a tired smile.
You saved your ship.
But, he sighed.
You were caught in the explosion, and now you're stuck here, like a fly in amber.
Lyssa frowned. "Stuck? But I'm not stuck." He sighed, holding his scarf in his hands.
You can't move forward in time. You always snap back forward to the point the effect took hold. Like a rubber band or a Stretch Armstrong.
"Who?"
Doesn't matter.
He sighed.
It was my fault. You have been stuck here, resetting your memories for what?
"For?"
A very long time.
"Am I?" She swallowed, feeling a wave of nausea. "Am I stuck like this forever?" His shirt was burgundy again, with no waistcoat. He adjusted the grey tie carefully.
No.
He said.
It's taken an incredibly long time, but you're slowly beginning to move forward in time.
He didn't sound happy about that. Lyssa frowned. She knew the tone well. There was bad news here. "What is it?" she asked. "What aren't you telling me?" He took a deep breath, putting his hands in his pockets.
Yeah. When the effects finally dissipate, one of 2 things will happen.
He held up one finger.
You might well return to normal. You'll be able to return to your time, your life.
Or? He held up a second finger.
The intervening years, all of them will catch up to you at once. Like the crack of the band when it breaks.
And I'll die.
Yes.
He was wearing a white shirt under the cream waistcoat again.
I should have stopped it.
Lyssa blinked. This man wasn't old. He must have been older than he looked. And she realized suddenly that he looked tired, like he was carrying this and 1,000 other burdens. "You don't need to feel guilty," she said. "I sacrificed myself to save you."
That's supposed to be my job.
She smirked. "Actually, it's supposed to be mine." At his quizzical frown, she laughed. "I'm the captain of the Titan Concordia." Her laugh faded. "I was." She straightened. "You were on my ship. You were my responsibility, not the other way around."
You'll forgive me, my dear, if I don't see it that way.
He said. "No," she replied. "I won't. So I'm telling you, stop seeing it that way. That's an order." And he laughed, putting his hands in his duffel coat pockets and smiling at her.
Well,
He said.
I guess you can't say any fairer than that.
Lyssa smiled back at him, before turning to look at the grey sky hanging over dull green hills. She frowned, turning back to look over her shoulder. For a moment, she thought she had seen someone there, and then dismissed the thought, and looked back out at the sky. "Looks like rain later," she said to no one.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official What For YouTube channel.